305 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque. While a far cry from the pushrod Iron V of the original,
Far cry?
all about. This is the first time since 1978 that a Mustang has carried the Mach 1 name, a name that returns with a vengeance. Unlike other retro rides that rely mostly on visuals to conjure up the past, the Mach 1 recaptures the true performance that made the name so respected on the streets in 1969 and 70. Still using the tried and true Fox chassis, the Mach 1 takes the Mustang to a new level and neatly fills in the gap between the volume performance Mustang GT and the exhilarating but expensive SVT Cobra. Mach 1 delivers a balance of cost and performance. The 2003 Mach 1 certainly looks the part of a 60s bad boy holdover. The shaker scoop, hood stripe, and integral front spoiler say retro, but blend well with the 2003's more contemporary shape. Classic racing stripes below the doors and 17-inch heritage wheels that are reminiscent of 60s Magnum 500 wheels also set a nostalgic tone. It's all topped off with subtle Mach 1 badging, low-gloss black rear spoiler, and of course chrome exhaust tips.
Okay, the New Edge Mach 1 Mustang is one of my holy grail Mustangs that I would love to own. Like, before I ended up with my Roush, when it came to getting my Roush, I was just looking for a GT and I happened to find a Roush. The Mach 1 was definitely the grail of something I wanted. I love the exterior styling. The shaker hood, the chin spoiler, the special C-pillars, the wheels. Like, there's only one thing I would actually change on the exterior of the Mach 1. I wish they would have put the vinyl between the taillights. Like, I have it on my Roush, and the back of the car just looks so naked without it. I mean, you already have the satin black spoiler, it's just right there. But personally, I think this is one of the more tasteful homages, inspirational looks of retro styling on a newer car. I'm kind of on the fence about, the whole retro craze of the 2000s with the PT Cruiser and the S187. I do think Ford had the blend right here, though, where there's definitely callback. This is inspired by something without it just being, a copy-paste of someone else's homework. What do you think? Is the Mach 1 a bit too flamboyant, or is it just right?
Interior touches are subtly retro as well. Fordophile baby boomers will feel right at home in the 1960s-style comfort weave seats. While the originals were vinyl, these are leather and provide good side bolstering for the Mach 1's impressive grip. Gray accent trim, stainless steel pedal covers, and aluminum ball shifter give the Mach more hints of 60s style. Large analog gauges with unique faces complete the look. Mach 1 has the functional and clean feel of a 60s muscle car.
Okay, until I got my GT350 seats, which, seriously, that was a huge score, I was looking for a set of Mach 1 seats for my Roush. Because my Roush, for some reason, just came with normal leather GT seats, which are in great shape, but I wanted something that was grippier. And since I've always, wanted a Mach 1, I was like, okay, well, I have a Roush. What Mach 1 bits can I throw into it? So those seats definitely were the number one that I wanted to get. They're actually the same style as what came in the Cobra Mustangs. Just as you can tell, different retro weave. I love the gauges. I believe they use the same sort of gauges for the Mustang Bullet, and definitely a side of things to come with the S197. Again, this is all stuff where I'm like, hey Ford, this stuff is great. Why didn't you make it an option on GTs or even a GT Premium, like performance seats or retro gauges? It just would have been cool to see some of these really hard to find parts. Trust me, like Mach 1 seats go for over $1,000 in rough shape. It would have been cool to see more availability of these parts.
But the heart of the Mach 1 is a super-tuned 4.6-liter V8 rated at 305 horsepower. That's 40 more than last year's Bullet and 320 pound-feet of torque. While a far cry from the pushrod Iron V of the original, the aluminum had 4.6 is the Cobra engine without supercharger, but with free-breathing twin-cam heads and 4 valves per cylinder. Intake cams come from the 32-valve 5.4-liter, and that means lots of bottom and mid-range torque, while port-matched exhaust manifolds match up to special mufflers. It's all topped off with that functional shaker hood scoop that's more than reminiscent of the ones found on 1968 and 1974 28 Cobra Jet Mach 1s. All this power is delivered through the Mustang's 5-speed manual or optional 4-speed automatic. The result is serious acceleration on the street, 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds, or only about a half second slower than the SVT Cobra. But the standing quarter mile has always been the Mach 1's calling card, and runs of 13.8 seconds to 103 miles per hour reinforce that heritage.
Far Cry? Okay, it's odd how they make the classic Mach 1s from the 1960s and 70s. It makes them sound like a better performer than the new age-based Mach 1. Because let's be honest, the 4.6 4-valve would have decimated anything from the 60s and 70s. Never mind the handling prowess of the Fox chassis. Okay, yes, I am a bit of a New Age Mustang evangelist, but let's be honest, the Fox chassis, even though it came out all the way back in the late 70s, in 2004 it was still receiving updates, new powertrains, upgrade suspension, and like the results right here speak for themselves. I mean, 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds, and a quarter mile in 13.8 seconds. Look, I know today getting, 4 seconds and under 0 to 60 is like the new gold standard, but that still is pretty darn fast for a car that is 20 plus years old. Now, I will say one thing about New Age Mustangs, as someone who is a bit of a fan of them myself, top end, they do tend to run out of steam. The newer 5.0s with variable valve timing just allows them to run circles around it, but I mean, from 0 to 60, a New Age Mustang is still pretty competent, and it's just hilarious to think that in this review, they're talking about a 4-valve 4.6, a New Age Mustang being inferior to the boomer mobiles of the 60s and 70s.
In keeping with its drag and street racing history, the Mach 1 forgoes the Cobra's independent rear suspension and instead opts for a retuned solid rear axle setup with a performance 355 final drive ratio. When combined with our test car's manual with a very low first gear, the experience was on par with any muscle Mustang of the 60s. Despite the solid rear axle, our staff marveled at the Mach 1's composure. With firmer spring rates than the GT, the Mach 1 felt solid and refined, due in part to an old drag racer's trick of connecting the subframes with frame rail connectors. This further stiffens the unibody chassis and makes intricate suspension tuning possible. Of course, fast cars need good brakes, and the Mach 1 has them. Large 13-inch Brembo front brakes like those on last year's Cobra and Bullet rain this horse down nicely.
Subframe connectors should have been standard on any 8-cylinder powered Ford Mustang from this era. What subframe connectors do is they pretty much connect the front subframe where the engine is to the rear subframe where the rear axle is, because let's be honest, the Fox chassis, while I do love it, the fact of the matter is that its roots go all the way back to 1978, when it was just supposed to be a cheap rear-wheel drive platform for coupes, sedans, station wagons, and a sporty car, which means it's pretty flexible. The fact that Ford acknowledges this and puts subframe connectors on the Mach 1 shows that honestly, it should have been standard equipment on any 8-cylinder powered Mustang. I mean, I have subframe connectors on my Roush, and adding those in absolutely transforms how well the car handles in transitions and turns. You definitely feel the whole car rotate around you instead of the front of the car going one direction and then the rear eventually following suit. So the fact that they added these to the Mach 1 to make it a better handling car along with a firmer suspension definitely makes a lot of sense, and it goes back to what I've said before on other videos. Why didn't Ford let some of these good parts trickle down?
And the Mach 1 package is nicely complete with a sticker of $28,370. With the addition of minor retro interior trim, our as-tested price jumped less than $300 to $28,665. This puts Mach 1 pricing closer to the Cobra than the GT, but that's as it should be. While lacking the brute force of the supercharged Cobra, the Mach 1 has one heck of a lot of performance mixed with a big dose of nostalgia.
So in 2003, this was a $28,000 car, which adjusted for inflation is $50,000. The thing is, I feel like that's not too out of line. Looking on the Ford website, that puts us right around the very top of a premium GT, or if you could find a good deal on one, a dark horse, which is really kind of where this car sat. You know, it was well above the GTs, but it was below the Terminator. So let me ask you this. It's 2003. Would you be dropping what is roughly $50,000 for a New Age Mustang, knowing that it still traces its roots all the way back to 1978? Hey, thank you so much for watching Brown Roush. If you're not subscribed, make sure you do so. I think I have the button over here. I'm really big into data and just make sure everything's like right. So leave me a comment down below about like what you liked about this video, what you don't. I actually do read all the comments, even the mean ones. And feel free to follow me on Instagram, TikTok. It's Brown_Roush.